Interstate 285. Yeah. Alright, today we are talking about Atlanta's Perimeter, Interstate 285. We are circling the city of Atlanta because the Chiefs are going to be playing the Falcons this week. Let's take a look at the route. Atlanta 285 makes somewhat of an oblong circle around the city of Atlanta, entering it briefly. Let's start by talking about the inner loop of 285. We're going to start from northbound I-85, and we see northbound I-85 is signed for Atlanta and the domestic terminal 285 as Atlanta bypass and for the international terminal. We get a little more detail once we get on the ramp. Now we see 285 East is for International Airport and Macon, and 285 North is for Birmingham and Chattanooga, and that is the way we shall head. We get to exit 1 here, so we know we are going the correct way, and this is Washington Road, exit 2, domestic terminal coming up. You're watching Control City Freak. This is the YouTube channel where we talk about highways and the places that they're assigned to go to. If you dig this kind of content, why not give us a like? And if you really like it, why not subscribe? Yeah, subscribe. In this general area, we are just seeing North 285 sign. This is in Fulton County, and this is how they do it. Entering Atlanta city limits, and we see I-20 interchange is 6 miles ahead. Travel time 5 minutes. I don't know, I've driven in Atlanta. It seems like that'd be more like 3 minutes. I-20 has kind of an annoying font for the freeway name. We get the freeway name before Atlanta. Really think you should either put Atlanta and then the freeway name, or do like Chicago does and put the freeway name in a smaller font, because locals already know the freeway name, so they don't need to see it as clearly, and people from out of town don't care what the freeway name is. 20 signed east for Atlanta and west for Birmingham. We are now signed Chattanooga Greenville because Birmingham is leaving now. They do the same thing on the westbound lane. We get this large Tom Murphy freeway sign and Birmingham under that. Like I say, needlessly confusing for people in Atlanta who are driving very fast. US 78 and 278 are concurrent, as they always seem to be when we run into them. We've run into them on 520 in Augusta, and it was the same situation. Do we need a 278? We're crossing the Chattahoochee River, which is the biggest river in the Atlanta area, so far as I could tell. And an interesting thing about Atlanta, doesn't have any major rivers in the center of town at all. We leave the city of Atlanta and enter Cobb County, having crossed the river. South Cobb Drive and Smyrna is our next exit. In Cobb County, they give us some control cities on the random exits. We're getting Birmingham and Greenville. We are getting signed just for 285's next interstate meeting. In this northwest corner, things really start to happen. The great US 41, and I'll get to southern US 41 one day, is the Cobb Parkway, and it is the exit for New Turner Field or whatever. I guess Atlanta likes building new stadiums every, 3-4 years or so. Seems like they build them all the time. 75 North Atlanta Chattanooga. 285 is no longer signed for Chattanooga since we're meeting I-75. It's now signed for Greenville and Augusta for the next two roads that we meet, I-85 and I-20. This building seems a lot taller than all the other buildings around. It is the building for TK Elevator, so I wonder if it's that tall to test the elevators. We are quickly approaching I-75, Atlanta, Chattanooga, and we are getting express lanes, which are closed now, but not in my next street view. Here's a look from the express lanes, and we can see the interchange for I-75 down below us. You can go left for Marietta and Chattanooga, northbound 75, south to get to downtown Atlanta. Here's the best glimpse of New Turner Field that I could find on Street View. So conveniently in the suburbs, instead of, having the scourge of the old stadium right in the middle of town. Nobody wants downtown baseball. From this ramp over I-75, we can see a view of the Atlanta skyline there in the distance. Could see a better view from that ramp just over there, but there's no street view for that ramp yet because it's still under construction. Here's the headquarters for the Weather Channel. This was requested by Edwin Paskey, so thank you so much for that request. Really appreciate that. Edwin requested that on the Patreon, and you can make requests on the Patreon as well. We have an all request video coming up in a couple of weeks. In fact, this video would be last call for that. I'm going to start working on that really soon. You can also make requests the old-fashioned way by doing a $5 super sticker and commenting on any video to leave that, and I appreciate those of you who do both of those things. Thanks. You guys are the best. We're leaving Cobb County and heading back into Fulton County. We just crossed the Chattahoochee River again. We are now in Sandy Springs. So no surprise, back in Cobb County, we are no longer getting control cities at random interchanges. We're meeting southbound US 19. The great US 19 keeps showing up. I'm gonna have to do an episode on that sometime in 2025, I think. It is signed for Roswell Road and Sandy Springs. We've got an interesting situation here, moving just a bit forward, north US 19 and Georgia Highway 400. See, the reason that interchange is interesting is because we have our exit for north US 19 before we actually go past southbound US 19. Due to this new construction, there no longer is a true 285 and US 19 concurrency. It would appear so at first glance, but US 19 through traffic stays on ramps and never enters the 285 main line. In fact, here is a look at that. We get off exits 26, 27 for northbound 19 and for Georgia 400, and we are about to go under the bridge for southbound 19. Coming from northbound US 19, here is where we can get to 285 East, Greenville, and Augusta, and northbound 19 stays on this ramp. As I said, it does not mix with 285 mainline traffic. It's a lot of development in this area as well. This is the Landmark Center, and there's quite a lot of other taller buildings in this stretch of Atlanta suburbia. We've entered DeKalb County, although we didn't get a sign telling us so. To be fair, there is a lot of construction going on right here, so that could be the reason for no sign. Because of the construction, we have this green out and a next two exits coming up here on this sign. The construction has been going on long enough, I had to go back to Street View in 2021 to get when it used to say next three exits, and we had the first one not greened out. In 2021, the construction was still happening then too. US 23 is another interesting road, and we meet it right here. We will meet it again because, loop. And our exit for I-85 is coming up. This large sign tells us about the large interchange that we're about to meet, the Spaghetti Junction, 85 south for Atlanta, and also a surface street north for Greenville. 285 is signed south for Augusta and Macon, and we have switched to south. I like a lot of signage, but man, Atlanta's got a lot of signage, just green all over the place. I feel like it'd be hard to keep track with everything that is going on here. Here are the ramps for the Spaghetti Junction, 285 at 85, and this was requested by Mo Cowan. When he lived in Atlanta, he got stuck in traffic at this interchange for 2 hours because of a bus crash. The bus had crashed in the I-85 lanes down below. Hopefully it didn't fall off one of these ramps. That would have been bad. Thank you so much for that request. I really appreciate that. And here's one more look at the Spaghetti Junction. We see ramps upon ramps all over the place. This is actually from I-85 southbound. It's a little more impressive. 285 is one level up. US 29 is another interesting road, and it is signed for Lawrenceville Highway right here, and we can see US 78 is coming up shortly as well. US 78 gets a lot of control cities, signed west for Decatur and Atlanta, so they're mentioning the inner ring suburb that we'll be hitting, and east for Snellville and Athens. Athens would be the important one to sign because that would be the way to get to UGA. Just 4 miles beyond US 78, we meet an independent 278. This was requested by the Derphog because AR Nathan made a video about 278, and the Derphog also wanted to mention that 278 goes to Myrtle Beach. Thank you so much for that request. We meet I-20 for the second time on the other side of town. We are now signed west for Macon and Montgomery. They're doing the same thing with the freeway names. I understand that freeway names are important, but this is not that useful for people from out of town who might be taking 285 and might miss their exit because they don't see the control city there. So I would definitely put the control city first, or put the freeway name in a smaller font. 675 is signed south for Macon, so we lose our Macon control city on 285 and are now signed for Atlanta Airport and Montgomery. I told you we'd meet US 23 again. Here it is on the southern side of Atlanta. We're going to be dealing with the Atlanta Airport for a lot in this section of the video, so ATL Airport Domestic, 285 West, and International, 75 North. They are giving us exits 3 miles apart to deal with this. Exit 58 for I-75 also has ramps to US 19, US 41, Georgia 3, and Georgia 85, so they throw all that on there. in this extra sign instead of putting the, I feel like they should put the 19 and 41 shields up there with I-75 because those are important roads. 75 exits here, 75 signed for Atlanta and Macon, northbound for Atlanta, southbound for Macon. No mention of Tampa because we already had 575 for Macon, although 575 could be signed for Tampa as well. We do see Tampa stuff in the future, but it tends to be signed the other direction. 285 now west for Columbus and Montgomery, which are both I-85 cities. We're ignoring I-20 for now. The I-75 ramp distributor lanes has this exit for 19 and 41. It is still signed for 75 in both directions. While crossing I-75, we can see the Atlanta skyline in the distance once again. If you squint, it's way down there. This is pretty interesting. We go right under one of the runways at the Atlanta airport. We're back close to where we started. We're meeting I-85 once again. I-85 south for Columbus and Montgomery. They mentioned both. I-85 north for the domestic terminal and Atlanta. 285 is now signed west for Birmingham and Chattanooga, as it was in the beginning of this video. 285 and 85 were a concurrency once upon a time, but just like with US 19, they have separate lanes now. So we're on 285 north, Birmingham, Chattanooga. 85 south, Columbus, Montgomery is just to the left of us. I-85 crosses over and it's on the other side of us now, and we see I-85's interchange for northbound 285. We cross the southbound lanes of I-85 and head back to a north configuration. Here's what this very confusing interchange looks like, and we can see that 285 and 85 not quite concurrent, but actually parallel during this section. Here's another look at the curve north, and this 6-lane configuration is the narrowest point of I-285. Here's an overhead look at the airport. We can see how massive it is and that why there are exits for it from 85, 75, and 285 is, well, because they surround this airport. All right, let's take a look at the outer loop of Interstate 285. Exit 62 is our highest numbered exit, and 61 is I-85. I-85 north for domestic terminal, Atlanta, south for Columbus, Montgomery. I-85 exits here, and 285 signed east for international and for Macon. Coming from southbound I-85, this is what it looks like. We get East 285 for International and Macon. No mention of Tampa, always Macon here. And northbound 285 for Birmingham, Chattanooga. We are next to northbound 85 once again. 285 East, Augusta, Macon. North 85 Atlanta. I felt like this was a good food exit sign for Atlanta. Feels very Atlanta. You got Chick-fil-A, you got Bojangles, you got the Waffle House, you got McDonald's and Burger King, which are the two most famous fast food Coca-Cola partners, which is another Atlanta thing too. I don't know what Supreme Fish Delight is, but I imagine that's probably super Atlanta as well. Here's an overhead of the tunnel under the runway. We go under a taxiway and we go under an actual runway, so planes will be screaming across that thing. Here's an exit for Clark Howell Highway and air cargo. It actually gets to the airport as well, even if you're not doing cargo, you can go to the airport that way. 285 East Augusta Greenville, 75 Atlanta, Macon, and Tampa. So Macon and Tampa both show up there this time around. We do get some Tampa signage on 285 East, so they alternate it and they put both of them on the signs from time to time. And showing this was requested by Edwin Paskey. Thank you so much for that request. I really appreciate that. We've got the same situation as we did going the other way. We have US 19 and US 41 exit 58, which is I-75, instead of putting that up on the main I-75 gantry. Coming from southbound I-75, there is no mention of Tampa. It's only South Macon. 285 is only getting East Augusta. That'd be referring to its connection with I-20 instead of mentioning the connection to I-85 as well. 675 is signed South Macon, just like it was the other way around. I have no idea why you'd get off at 675 if you've already had the chance to get off on I-75. 285 is signed east for Augusta and Greenville. Interestingly, coming from northbound 675, 285 west is signed for Atlanta because you'd be signing 675 north for Atlanta and 285 will take you over to I-75. 285 is east Augusta Greenville as per usual. I-20 doesn't bother with the freeway names going in this direction apparently. Northbound, not so important for some reason. We get the better 20 west Atlanta, 20 east Augusta. Just as we've seen before, coming from 20 east, 285 is only signed for one city, the next control city for the next interstate that 285 meets, rather than being signed for two. Exit 42 is straight up just for a transit station, a random subway stop here, MARTA parking only. This was requested by Boss King Inc. because he found it interesting that there's just this random transit station here, and you can only get on going northbound, you can't get on going southbound. Thank you so much for that request, I really appreciate that. There's a similar thing in DC off of the Beltway, Greenbelt station that you can exit at, which I've actually done several times, gone and parked at Greenbelt and taken the subway into DC instead of dealing with DC parking and traffic. We've got more US highway action, US 29 and US 78 coming up just ahead with the same control cities we saw going in the other direction. Coming from US 78, 285 assigned south Augusta-Macon and north Greenville-Chattanooga as we've been seeing, and 29 has a separate ramp for Lawrenceville Highway. We are approaching the Spaghetti intersection once again with I-85, which is signed for Greenville and Atlanta. 285 switches to Chattanooga and Birmingham now, recognizing I-75 and I-20. Coming from 85 north, it is 285 west Chattanooga, only I-75, and 285 east Augusta, only I-20. Here's a bird's eye view of that large interchange. It's the biggest one I could find in the Atlanta area on 285. We meet US 19 and Georgia 400 again, and we have this enormous sign because they're giving us a lot of information for those roads. 285 west Chattanooga Birmingham. There's definitely room for a third control point on there. You could put on the airport, you could say Smyrna, lots of different things. The baseball stadium, why not add a third thing? There's room. Coming back to I-75 and 75 south is 2 US 41 for Atlanta. North, we're getting Marietta and Chattanooga. 285 west for Birmingham and Montgomery at this point. This is pretty interesting. Coming from 75 south, 285 east bypass, Greenville and Augusta, the usual stuff. West bypass, Birmingham for I-20 and Tampa for I-75. We're coming back to I-20. It's signed for the same things it was in the other way. And we also get a MARTA station exit coming up here as well. When leaving I-20, we get 285 south, Montgomery and Macon, and 285 north for Chattanooga and Greenville. We make it back to I-85, signed north for the domestic terminal in Atlanta, south for Columbus and Montgomery. Eastbound 285 is going to be for International and Macon, as it's going to cut over and be next to 85 once again. All right, let's take a look at Todds the way it should be. Got something a little different this time, so stay tuned till the end. I'm gonna say they do this pretty much as perfect as possible. I would say the way it should be is about the way it is. Inner loop, Birmingham, Chattanooga, Chattanooga, Greenville, Greenville, Augusta, Augusta, Macon, Macon, Montgomery, and Montgomery, Birmingham. Outer, we're gonna see the same thing but the opposite. So we're doing the two interstate thing the whole way around, and I like that. I think it is signed well. Looking at major metro areas, a lot of them have, I would consider, pretty weak power rankings vis-a-vis the cities that they sign, considering how big they themselves are. For the most part, Dallas has miserable control cities. Houston as well. Miami does not have good control cities, considering how big of a city it is. LA and New York have terrible control cities. They aren't throwing their weight around. They aren't acting like the giant cities they are. I think Atlanta does a better job than any of those, but the only really huge city that does well, other than Phoenix, of course, because Arizona, would be Chicago. Chicago kind of recognizes its own strength. Chicago's not signing Springfield. Chicago's not signing Kenosha. Chicago's not signing Gary. Chicago knows it's too big to sign these middle-of-the-road kinds of places. You gotta go for the big stuff. I think the way Atlanta is signed is fine, but here's my dream for how they could sign 285. The most perfect way for Atlanta to recognize that it's a huge, huge metro, and it should be signing other huge, huge metros instead of these fairly not well-known mid-sized southern cities that it currently signs. So dream-wise, 285 should be interloop coming from I-85, sign Memphis and Nashville because of I-24 and I-22, those connections to get to those, or if you don't like the I-22 connection, sign it Dallas and Nashville. From I-20, sign it Nashville and Charlotte, and probably just Charlotte for a while. And then from the northern I-85 interchange, just sign it Tampa until I-75. And then from I-75 on, just sign it Alabama, because instead of signing it for Montgomery and Birmingham, anywhere in Alabama, you'd be going that way. Outer loop, sign it Tampa and South Carolina, same reason, because 85 Greenville and 20 beyond Augusta goes to Columbia, so both of those are South Carolina. After meeting I-20, sign it Charlotte and Nashville. Following that, you could sign it just Tennessee, because you can get to Tennessee in any direction from I-20 and I-75. Then Dallas and New Orleans. I-85, you could sign it all the way for New Orleans if you're really trying to swing, because Montgomery is not that big of a place, nor is Mobile, but it is the way to New Orleans. Finally, at the end, sign it New Orleans, Tampa for I-85 and I-75. All right, thank you so much for watching this episode of Control City Freak. I really appreciate it. We are coming back next week with the I-5 reboot episode. Requests are closed at this point, but that is going to be a lot of fun. 5 northbound. And until next time, my name is Todd, and keep on trucking.